Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transformational Storytelling Show. I am so happy to be here today. It is a beautiful day. It is the last Thursday in August. Can you believe it? Ah, summer is almost over. So let me know in the comments if you're a
No,
summer person. Are you?
I do love the summer.
Yes, or those who are just happy to go into fall. Let me know about that too. Today we have Megan Babcock with us. I am so excited. I met this woman at an event where I was speaking, and my daughter literally fell in love with her for me. And she's like,
She is the
Mommy,
cutest. Yes. She was like
thank you.
dragging me to meet you.
Yes. Yes. She was like, the two of you need to meet each other. You get to meet Megan. She is amazing, and you're gonna love what she's doing. And turns out it was true. Love at first sight. I love, love, love Megan Babcock, and so are you. You are gonna fall in love with her. She's an award-winning transformation coach. She's a best-selling author. She is the founder, are you ready? Of It's Your Story to Tell, which is a non-for-profit organization. She also has the It's Your Story to Tell podcast. And she is a board certified holistic nurse coach. So she coaches nurses. How awesome is that? She's also a certified brain health coach, which is sort of what we're talking about today. So buckle your seatbelts because she's going to be telling us about how to really manage our brain so that we can kind of live a happier and healthier life. And she's also a certified mental health coach specializing in trauma and crisis. And that's part of her story that you get to hear today. Through Megan's transformation journey, she has learned that lasting change requires healing the nervous system, not just changing our thoughts. So get ready to learn about that. Megan blends neuroscience and whole brain healing to help women, especially, move from survival into resilience, purpose, and freedom, guiding them to live a life that they love and to also live a legacy of impact. Megan, I am so happy that you're here. I am so honored to have you as my guest today, and also really excited for you to share your story from the Voices of Transformation book and soon to be the Gifts of Pain as well. Without further ado, welcome, and would you be willing to share your story with our audience?
Absolutely. But before I start, I just want to thank you. I'm so thankful for that moment. I don't think things happen by coincidence. And I just love how your daughter saw that there was something that we shared, which was the power of story, and how that we're using our story to change our legacy for our girls, our kids, for the people that we serve. And so I've just been honored to work alongside of you in these projects and have you as a coach as I continue to learn and grow. So thank you for all that you've been pouring in to me to be able to be more effective in sharing that story.
I appreciate you. Oh.
And I'm going to try to tell you my story without too many tears. But my story started in a moment that I was crying out, I cannot live like this anymore. I collapsed on the bathroom floor. I knew I did not want to keep hurting my children, and I couldn't pretend anymore that I was okay. Earlier that night, I had stood in my son's bedroom doorway. My keys were in my hand. I needed to leave to get my sister to the airport. She was leaving on a red eye after supporting me for a few days as I anxiously prepared to meet with an attorney. This was the first terrifying step towards leaving an abusive marriage. But in this moment, my son, he was having a full emotional meltdown and he wouldn't stop crying. And I could feel myself about to melt down too. My heart was racing, and the presence of urgency, irritation, and fear all climbed to my chest. And it all happened so fast. And before I knew it, the words came out of my mouth. And I said in an angry and threatening voice, "If you don't stop crying, I'm going to take your phone away." The room went silent. And in that instant, I was transported back into my own childhood during a sad movie where instead of getting comfort, I heard an adult booming voice say to me, "Stop crying, for heaven's sakes. It's just a movie." And now my own voice echoed the same message that had once scarred me so deeply. I had become someone I never wanted to be. And that broke me. I wanted to stop. I wanted to sit with my son and comfort him, but I had to leave. I had to get my sister to the airport. And on my way home, all I could keep thinking about was I had become someone I never wanted to be. When I got home, the house was quiet, everyone was sleeping, and I went in my bathroom, closed the door, slid down the door, just tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I cried out, "I can't keep living this way anymore." And in that moment, I heard a quiet voice that told me to take every thought captive. That was the journey that I started on and am now using as part of the work that I do to help others identify where their struggle is, where their triggers are trying to lead them. And I'm really excited to talk more about how I do that work because I am so passionate about seeing, especially moms, understand their story and how it's impacting them and affecting those that they love.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. In my platform, I have a lot of moms who follow my work, and I can imagine that 100% of them, just like I do, relate to this moment that you had in which we feel like we failed because we became that very thing that we vowed to never be. And just, I mean, I'm feeling it all over my body right now, just how vulnerably and beautifully you shared. Thank you for being so brave to tell the truth about how we transmit our trauma to those who we love most and we vow to protect and cherish for the rest of our lives. I think we've all been there. Because it comes out, unless, of course, we follow the steps to heal and regulate, which is what you're going to be talking about. And I also want to thank you for mentioning the fact that you were in the midst of all this turmoil, ending and leaving an abusive marriage, because many of us have to perform and have to show up for our family in the midst of the most chaotic events and the most traumatic processes. And so thank you for being here And I don't just mean this show, I mean overcoming and surviving that abusive relationship and for doing the work that you do to help others through trauma and crisis. And I want to ask you, in sharing all of these details about your own story, why did you decide to do that? And as someone who loves story, why do you feel that storytelling is a powerful tool, and why is it worth it? Because I know every time we share, we are feeling and reliving those details again because they're part of our body, right? In our memory. So why is it something that we must do, especially as moms?
Such a good question. And it is not something I ever thought I would be doing, is sharing my story so openly and vulnerably. I was and am recovering people pleaser, high achiever, very successful in my corporate career. And I couldn't imagine having this conversation a few years ago. And as I began to heal, and as I realized that I don't want this to be my legacy, I don't, my children were getting older, because at that time, in that moment that I shared, my son was in about sixth grade. And I knew that if I wanted them to learn something different, that I had to be open and share the pain from the past, because that wasn't something that was invited in my home. That loud booming voice that was telling me to shove my emotions. It was because, they were also uncomfortable with feelings that, like, oh, if someone's crying, you've let them down, you're a failure, all of these negative messages. And I knew that if I didn't want to keep replaying those same messages to myself and transmitting them, like you said, to my children, I had to start sharing a different message. And that led me into becoming a coach. And as I was thinking about what made a difference for me, it was that I had a domestic violence advocate who shared her story, who sat with me, who made me feel safe, that it was okay for us to talk about these things that no one else had ever talked to me about. And so as I realized that is what made the difference in my life, I knew I couldn't not share this. And my hope is that people can see it's never too late to rewrite your legacy and the story that you want to tell, and give them hope when they see, not just where I'm at today, but they understand that where I was, because we can look on social media, we can see like the pretty things that people want us to see. And that was my perfectly collated social media of my beautiful family, which was not true. And so
Mm,
I felt it was so important to be honest about not just the good, because I have lots of good, but also the things that were hard. And then my way of overcoming them is not going to be the same way as you, but by sharing our story, we can feel safe enough that the person can maybe explore something that they haven't had space for. So that's why I just
mm,
love doing that. And that's why my podcast exists. And it's
yeah.
just such an honor to hold space for people's story.
I love that. Thank you so much for the work that you do, and for modeling the storytelling, and for giving everyone right now permission to do so. Because sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes that seeing someone do it and also hearing why someone does it gives us permission to do it, to do the same. And what a beautiful example, and what a beautiful light you shine on this subject. And I want to go back to what you said about holding our thoughts captive and how that
Mhm.
led you into the work that you do today. Can you walk us through it and tell us, about your work and why you love it and the
Mhm.
difference that it's making in the world right now?
Yes, absolutely. So that was 10 years ago. And the direction that was given me to take my thoughts captive, honestly, in that moment, I was like, really? How long is that going to take? Like, here I am in the midst of this trauma and crisis, and I need a miracle. That's what I need.
Mm,
But I was so desperate at that moment, and I had tried so many things. And I said, all right, okay, if I'm take my thoughts captive, do what with them? And
mm,
the next thought was measure them
mm,
against love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self control. Now, those are all beautiful things, all things that I would like love to have in my life. But when I sat with those thoughts, I realized none of them sounded like those things. And so then I
mm,
was like, what do I do when I'm realizing that every thought I have does not align with these things? They are the desires of my heart, but how do I get from where I'm sitting on the bathroom floor desperate to living this life that is abundant and fulfilling and filled with purpose? And it was like, you're transformed by the renewing of your mind, which
mm,
for me, I'm spiritual. And these were scriptures that I knew and even had like spoken over myself when like things were hard, or, I can do all things through Christ who
mhm.
strengthens me. But they weren't transforming me because I wasn't actually looking at what was the root of why I wasn't experiencing this love and joy that I wanted. And so as I went on this journey and continued to grow, there were so many hard things in this 10-year period. I mean, um, I did get divorced. That was very, very difficult. Um, my son struggled with, his own things because of what he grew up in. Um, I did end up getting remarried to an amazing man, and the first week of our marriage, he was diagnosed with cancer and had to have a bone marrow transplant. So that was the first year of our marriage. Then COVID hit, and then I had to send my son to a therapeutic boarding school for what his struggles were. Uh, when I thought things were getting better, it was just like, whoa, these things kept coming. But what I was learning in those is that I can have joy and peace in the moment if I am measuring my thoughts and trying to turn them in the direction that I wanted to go. And
Mhm.
ultimately, this became my Unstuck key, which is 3 simple questions that help you transform your triggers into the life that you desire, the one you love. And
Mm,
I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do this. Like I said before, I was in counseling. I know DBT, I know CBT, I know, all of these things. But in the moment of being triggered, like in that situation with my son, you lose access to the conscious side of your brain
yeah.
that allows you to think about your choices. And I needed something that helped me in those moments, the moments that mattered most, when I was the most relationally activated and my nervous system was wanting me to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I needed to use that trigger, that moment, to choose to do something different, because I kept doing the same things over and over and repeating those patterns from the past. And I had to make space in order to, do something different. And that's where those 3 questions of why, what, and how kind of came into being, and is something that I use to help women, when they are struggling and they recognize they're struggling and they've probably tried a lot of different things, but it's about looking to inside into yourself to understand what is actually going on, because it may not be this thing in the very moment, but something that's been triggered by that you really have to go back to in order to be able to heal. And that's what the 3 questions helps you to do and get unstuck in the process.
I love those 3 questions. It's so simple and yet so powerful. And one of the things that I really love about it is that it focuses on what we need in that moment. Could you elaborate a little bit about that? Because I think that sometimes as women, as moms, we focus on everybody else's needs and we forget our own. So, what are some examples that you share in your book about these needs that we have
Mhm.
and how complex or simple are they?
Well, they can be as simple as a taking a breath, giving yourself a space, like
Mm,
getting a drink of water, having something to eat. When you if we go back to my story with my son, the why, was I so activated, was revealed to me, and then I needed to know, what did I need in that moment? Well, back when I was 7 and that happened in that experience for myself, I needed comfort. It was a
mm,
really sad movie. My emotions made sense, but no one sat with me in it. And you know what? It was the exact same thing for my son. So I needed to learn how to show up for myself and have
mm,
compassion. So, we're engaging with curiosity because we're asking these questions, and that allows us to move out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn and kind of take a different perspective and look a little bit deeper. And then you can ask, what did I need in that moment, or what do I need in this moment? And it,
mm.
like you said, could be simple, but it also just the recognition in that moment that, like, I was taught this.
Yeah.
It allowed me to release so much shame that I had and actually realize that, you know what, I don't really, this isn't working for me. This isn't what I wanted. And I actually have choice, which I didn't realize I had. I had lived for a lot of years in a victim mentality because of the hard things in my story.
Wow, we have choice. I love that. And I love how simple it can be. A breath, a glass of water, or a little comfort. Now, if you need comfort, how do you go about getting that in that very moment? Because obviously, you were 7. That's being a little while ago, not too long. Look how
Mhm.
young you are. But
40
that
years now, so you're sweet, but yes. At the time it was only about 30, but
Yes, thank you. And then, it's like, so that's in the past. How do I
Mhm.
comfort myself from something that happened such a long time ago?
So when you're in the moment, like you said, it is really hard to give yourself the full comfort in that moment. But what you can do is recognize that your triggers are not there to keep you stuck. They're there to reveal something to you, right? And so when we can even just acknowledge that and say, I'm triggered in this moment and I want to show up different, I'm going to need a few minutes, right? Because now you're giving yourself permission to take that space to give yourself what you need. So you have to first give yourself permission that
Mm,
it's okay to say, what's happening right now in this moment is going to not result in me being as effective. And I need to make space for that. And this process really I learned it when I had messed up. We don't learn from, the moments like right when they're happening a lot of times because
Mhm.
of the trigger. So it's all about using things this is why coaching is so powerful. You're looking back, I was looking back that night at my story and understanding it, and I had the space. But really, it's about learning to pause in the moment of activation so that you don't continue the pattern. And then you take space to kind of go through the questions and understand. And the more you do that, the more effective you are at staying regulated in the moment. And you'll start seeing it instead of having to look back, you'll be able to do that in the moment.
I love it. So let's be patient with ourselves when it doesn't magically work because it is a key, not a magic wand.
Oh, exactly.
I love that. I love that. And when you take your thoughts captive, you make that pause, you decide what you need, and you feel into, okay, how can I respond moving forward? One of the things that would love for you to clarify to everyone who's listening and watching right now is when we're saying that, and you said we're engaging curiosity, what if we start to feel shame? What if, we feel guilty, like I shouldn't have, because obviously that's not who we want to become. So how do
Mhm.
we combat the shame that comes up in those moments when we take a pause and we realize, oh, this is not how I've been doing it all this long, or I didn't do it as well as I wanted to. I stopped
Mhm.
myself in the middle, but I still did some damage. We always kind
Mhm.
of go in those places, and I would love for you to share with us how you handle those.
So I think it's important to think about guilt and shame. Guilt is saying I did something wrong. Shame is I'm bad, I'm wrong, and it just keeps you stuck. And so when I understood that guilt is a good thing, it's the thing that says, like, I'm not living in my values, I'm not aligned. And I could, instead of shutting down, and I could acknowledge I'm human. There is no one who is perfect. Now, I tried to be perfect, but it was a facade, right? And so I had to look at myself and say, you are learning and you're growing. And I needed to have grace and love for myself, because what I've learned on my journey is you can't give what you haven't received. And for so long, I was trying to manufacture like love and good works, and I became a nurse, and I was a great nurse, and I wanted to help people, but I was not being as effective as I could be because of how critical and judgmental I was of myself, which then runs over into everything else. And so I had to recognize that's part of taking the thoughts captive and recognizing that they're not filled with love and joy and peace
Mhm,
and
mhm,
goodness for myself, and choose to say a different story. And so I would find different, whether it was scriptures or things like that, because most of the time when we evaluate our thoughts, there is like a very specific message that goes on loop
yeah.
in your mind. And so you don't have to have like a lot of different things to speak over yourself, but finding something that's true about your identity. And
Mm,
I also had to realize that um, I wasn't God. I wasn't perfect. Like, so why am I trying to achieve something that I can't do in my own strength? And that's what I was doing. I was trying to do it in my own strength, and I was failing at that miserably until I
yeah.
let go and surrendered.
Yeah. Yeah. As they say in the rooms, let go and let God. I really love that saying. And thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful. I always say, I'm not the general manager of the universe. That's
Thank
not
God.
my job. Exactly. Yeah. That's not my job. And what is
Mhm.
my job? And I think it goes with that sense of curiosity that you have really, really expertly shown us how to do. I feel that if we use this stuck key, unstuck key, that we're going to be able to have a more regulated nervous system. And I want to, you know, really go back to what you believe about our nervous system. So you say that lasting change is beyond changing our thoughts, and it requires that we heal our nervous system. And how do we know we need healing in our nervous system? How do we know that it's not just thoughts that are coming out and up and showing up in our mind? How do we know that it is our nervous system that needs healing? Because a lot of times we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I didn't for so long. I thought, you hear things like change your thoughts, change your life. And while that can be a good step, if you just stop there, you will find yourself cycling through the same things over and over and just trying to change your thoughts. And that's why these questions, from why am I feeling so activated right now? Activation is your body's response. It's more than just your brain's response, right? My heart was racing. There was anxiety and overwhelm in my chest. And then I spoke angrily and quickly. Like when we start recognizing those are our cues, our signs that, okay, this isn't just a thought issue. This is something that I am being reminded of. My body is reliving it, even if I can't recall it in the moment. I was very fortunate that in that moment I had this flashback. But I think so many times in my past, there were things that were coming up and flashing up, but because I wasn't able to get curious, I shoved them down. And
Mhm.
probably most of us can identify, and it feels really scary to actually turn towards that thing that you've been running from.
Mhm.
But that holds the key to unlocking your nervous system. And
Mhm.
so when you can then regulate through that, show up for yourself and the what am I needing? Because if you think about trauma, it happens in relationship and it happens when you're unable to process it, like long-term trauma. You can have a really traumatic event and it not lead to trauma that's impacting your life for years and years if you have that support that you need to process it. And so when you don't, it gets stuck in your body. And so we have to then be able to sit with ourselves and look at the story. And I think one of the best things that next to the domestic abuse advocate was being in a support group, because
Mhm.
relationship happens in trauma. It also needs to be healed. So whether it is a coach, a trusted friend, a support group that you can attend, being with people who are walking through the same things, excuse me, allows you to be seen and understood. And when I didn't know how to have compassion for myself, others were. And then as you have that compassion and you have the understanding of what's below the surface, you begin to calm.
Mhm.
And then from that calm place, you can ask, how do I want to respond in a way that moves me forward? Because remember, that's when you have access to the conscious side of your brain that allows you to use your critical thinking and executive functioning. Whereas when we started, before we asked the why question, we were in a triggered state, which you can all probably think back to a time you were triggered and realize how fast your brain was going. You weren't hearing the people around you or talking. And so again, this is one of those things that it is a journey. It is a process. And we have to go into it expecting that perfection is not going to be the answer. And if we expect that, we actually cut ourselves off from transformation because we can't make space for what happens when we get it wrong.
Yeah. Wow, this is so powerful. I'm so grateful for everything that you shared. Of course, in my experience, this works. And I am just so excited. You have, of course, your own Voices of Transformation books for sale. So make sure that you use the show notes, everyone, to connect with Megan. I am going to give you the information on where to find her. Of course, we already talked about the It's Your Story to Tell podcast, which is also the name of her nonprofit, and you can connect with her there. But all of the info is going to be there so you can connect with her, learn more about this amazing information that's going to change the way you live and parent and leave a legacy. And also, get your own autographed Voices of Transformation book from Megan because she's really pretty and you want that face on your bookshelf.
Oh,
I'm
thank
just
you.
joking, but you're a wealth of information. And as they say, not just a pretty face,
Mm.
but you have a beautiful heart, and we can tell that virtually, but I also have experienced it in person. Can't wait to hug you again. But in the meantime, what is one thing that everyone out there who's listening and watching right now can do to get started with this what, why, and how system that can get him started on the journey?
So we live in a crazy world. So I don't think it'll take you long to experience a trigger. Or you're a mom or a wife, or you're going to get triggered. So the next time you're triggered, I just want to invite you to pause and to get curious and just start with why, and then move into what, and then move into how. And do not shame yourself because that is going to keep you stuck. I want you to feel that there is nothing that is impossible, that you are never too far gone. Like all of the things in my story, I would have never said. I'd be sitting here talking about how you can change your life and how I was living a life I loved. But I can tell you it's possible when you choose to be intentional. So next time you're triggered, just get curious and see where it leads you, and offer yourself love and compassion in that journey. And I know you will begin to unlock one next step you can take, and then one more. So don't get overwhelmed with like so many steps. I used to think like, oh, I've got to be this person, instead of just like one tiny step. I would overwhelm myself. So just take it slow.
Yes. Oh, I feel that. Thank you so much, Megan. You are a joy. You are a gift. Your faith is so powerful, and I appreciate you. And thank you,
Thank you.
everyone, for tuning in today. Make sure to connect, and I love you. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye, love.